Hey, how's it going? It's nice to see you again. How do you have an idea? I know it's a broad question, but that's going to be the topic that we're focusing on for this video. It kind of continues the themes of my last video, which was a scripted, fun little short film about why we make things and why I haven't lately. I thought upon making that I'd be able to ride that momentum wave and just keep making it. I was like, if I'm really meta about why I'm struggling, then I'll figure it out and just be making things again. Well, I report to you that it is not that easy, and I'm trying the same thing again. So in this video, I wanted to highlight what I'm going through and my own personal struggles with my own creativity and my ideas, and maybe through that lens, you can extract some information that might help you if you're also facing immense resistance like myself. So I just wanted to highlight some strategies and maybe talk about some of the systemic problems that you might be facing. To begin with, even doing this, I feel super self-conscious about what I'm trying to say, and I'm questioning if I'm even like adding value to the overall conversation. And I think, especially with this, because I'm like being viewed, I think that causes me to think about what I'm going to say in an almost negative way, where it's very like ego driven. And I think ultimately that's kind of what I'm facing and one of the main problems. So to answer the question of how to have an idea, the answer, I think, is to feel intensely all of your emotions without criticism or without judgment, and being open to experience. Now, how do you do that? Well, that's the question. And I think there's some strategies that you can employ that will help you along the way. Even just, experiencing this as a normal human being in everyday life too. I'm, again, just graduated from college, and I feel like I've just hit a really creative streak where I figured out how to express myself through my art. One being video, two being music. And now that I have these platforms to be able to express myself, what do I want to say? What is there to say? I think so much of my art up until this point has been trying to figure out how to work on the art. And because I've been focusing on my craft and improving that, I think the themes just kind of jump out without me thinking about it. But now that I actually have experience in these crafts, I'm finding it really difficult to figure out what to play on the piano, what to sing about, what to write about. I think that is the most crippling part. I feel like I've been drawing so much information from my previous life, because I do feel like I'm in a new chapter, so that's why I stipulate previous life. This question is also more about how do I live my life in a way that I want to live it too, because I think that is very correlated to how you have ideas. Ideas have to come from you and from your own experience. And I think you have to display a certain level of willingness to be humiliated to actually push through and get to a place where you're creating out of genuine interest in whatever you're doing. Let me tell you a little story about what's been going on in my musical life lately. I've worked on a song in March of this year, and then I worked on a song in June. Those are basically the two only songs that I've finished lately where I feel good about them. And the one in March came from a very spontaneous session that basically the song wrote itself and finished in 2 days, which is, to me, crazy. And the other one, I was working on the piano for it for months, but then had just like a breakthrough with the writing and just finished it again in like 2 days. And I'm left kind of feeling a intense whiplash after that, because so many of my other ideas don't come naturally like that, and they don't just manifest themselves out of my expression. And I'm questioning if I'm good at what I'm doing because I can't replicate that. I'm questioning if what I'm doing is forced or, I don't know, disingenuous, because comparing what I'm doing when I'm struggling to when I'm just in the flow state it feels like two completely different experiences. I'm currently working on a new album. It's going to be called A Walkthrough. And the idea, Inception, is super inspired when I came up with it. The album's going to be focusing around field recordings of me walking in different environments and featuring footsteps as percussion elements and as Foley. And I loved the idea, and now I'm 6, 7 songs in, I'm kind of hitting a brick wall where at first I explored that idea and it was really fulfilling, and I'm like, this is exactly what I want to do. And now I'm kind of trying to fit a mold and fit expectations. I think that's the other part. Having expectations in creativity is a really difficult way to create. And I've heard people talk about this all the time. Lately, I watched an interview with Damon Albarn, who was talking about how if you know you're going to be like performing at Wembley Stadium and you're trying to write with that in mind, you'll just write dog shit because it's not actually you creating. It's this like weird egocentric version of the future. And I don't think that's productive, and it doesn't seem to work. But the question is, how do you get to a place where you can ignore the medium that you're working in and ignore like the presentation and the distribution and people seeing it and just make in the moment? One thing that's helped me a lot lately has been walking, and that's how I found the theme of the album and how that just sort of came to me. So I'll be using that framework of coming up with this new album for me as a way to kind of diagnose and weed out problems that I've been having. Because again, that seemed to come from a place that was totally organic. And trying to follow that up feels mechanical in a weird way. So when I was coming up with this idea, I was walking all the time. That's one of my favorite hobbies lately in the past like 3-4 years. I try and go walking as much as I can because it's some of the only time that I get to myself where it feels like a reward to me, where I'm giving myself the space to just exist, not have to worry about what I'm cooking for dinner, how I'm going to, get this promotion at a job, how to have a good relationship with people. I strip all of that away and my brain just sort of works on things while I'm walking. And that has been really beneficial. And so I wanted to take that sort of approach towards the album and talk about how that helps me. But I've kind of hit a dead end because I think it's kind of straightforward, right? So how do you explore those themes more genuinely? I think I start to come closer to an answer every time I go walking, but focusing in on a more small scale, some of the songs I musically really love. Like I'll have the melodies stuck in my head for days. I'll just be thinking about them a lot and enjoying the instrumentals. Like I especially lately, I've been finishing the instrumentals before writing, and I don't think that's working for me because I'll have this like beautiful piece of art that I'm really satisfied with musically, and then be scared to ruin it because if I throw a bad melody on there, like a bad vocal melody, it won't be interesting and people will disengage and I won't be happy with it if it's not the best thing I can possibly do. And already you see the problem, right? I'm setting myself up for failure because when I'm writing, I'm not thinking about being in the moment. I'm thinking about the future, and I'm thinking about when this is done, and I'm thinking about how it'll be received, and I'm not allowing myself to explore the idea of being humiliated. You need to do that and to be okay with that idea of, even if what I make is bad, it doesn't matter. I won't be ostracized for writing a bad melody. This is not going to ruin my career because I couldn't write the best song on this one project. And that's where ego comes into play. And I know that everybody's definition and what ego means to them is different for every person. But to me, it is those small things where I'm worried about how I'm going to be received and how, if people are going to like it. Like, what does it matter? Because if you're in the moment not enjoying what you're doing because you're worried about if people are going to like it, then people aren't going to like it because you don't like it. I think it's a really fun topic with musicians. Do they listen to their own work? I've always found it interesting when people say no, because to me, when I'm making music, I'm making music that I care about and that I want to hear and that excites me. And of course I would want to listen to it. Now, hearing myself sing is a completely different thing. But musically, that's how I feel. It's hard to say, because I originally started music as an almost like pseudo rebellion. It's complicated, but I've had a lot of people tell me to not sing or to not work on music because it wasn't good at the time. And that may have been the case, but that's kind of instilled this really self-critical lens that I work through. And I think it allows me to achieve a high level of mastery over my music, because I do take on that perfectionist mindset a lot. It is also completely crippling. Like right now, it just feels awful to like pick up a guitar and work on these things, trying not to ruin them. And I think that's such a weird way to think about things, because I mean, in art, there's no good way to do something. There's no bad way to do something. There's just different approaches. I have these little fragments of song pieces that I'm just mulling over and playing over and over again because I don't want to explore a new chord to follow the progression because I'm worried that it'll be the wrong choice, or I'm worried that I'll take a song and ruin it, like I said. And that's been super detrimental. Outside of music, let's take film, for example. I'm a media arts grad, so this whole thing is my shtick. I love making things, and I've been worried about. I've not been worried. I've just been self-conscious about making things, because even in a video like this, I've been worried about how I'm coming across and if people are even gonna watch the video. And I tell myself that I don't care, and I tell myself that it's irrelevant, because if I'm having fun doing it, then that's gonna come across. But then even when I am having fun, I'll go into that egocentric mind when the video is published and I'm looking at the analytics and I'm like, nobody's watching what I'm doing, and it feels like I'm shouting into a void sometimes. And that's where I'm coming from when I'm making a video like this. Not today. Today is different. Today I had the courage to sit down and go, okay, we're just gonna make a video and it's not gonna be scripted, and if it's bad, it's bad. And that's okay. And if I seem like a fool, that's how I am perceived, that's okay, because maybe I am. And I'm not scared of that anymore. I'm not scared of feeling like a novice. I guess my point is that I'm okay being humiliated now. I think if I were to pull an analogy from my current life, I am working at a bar right now, which has been really fun, because it's just this whole new world that I was completely out of the loop on. You know, I would patron bars. I enjoy beer and cocktails, but to actually be making the craft and like working alongside a kitchen, which is something that's completely new, was scary. And I've had a couple interactions with customers that have been really negative and have made me feel terrible, because if there's something that I don't know, I feel ignorant and I feel judged for that, because it is in this like customer service place where there is an expectation that you know everything. I had that negative interaction with a customer, and that was last week. And this week has been a kind of flip reversal, where yesterday I had a really difficult customer as well. And I felt myself evolving, where I'm like, it doesn't matter how I'm being perceived. It just is the situation. And so I've kind of accepted that position of willing to be humiliated in front of people. And as soon as you let go of that feeling of ego and protecting the self, then you can actually move forward. I've also been encountering resistance to social interactions outside of work too. I'll hang out with friends, and I just, in the moment, I don't know what to talk about. I don't know what to say, because I really think a lot about what I say, and probably too much. No, definitely too much. No. See, there we go. That's too much. But I put value on what I say, and maybe because I'm a writer and because that's what I do on my spare time, I focus on what I'm going to say, and if what I'm saying is good, and especially when I'm editing, that I feel like I've been in editor mode lately. That was actually rather profound, realizing that I've been in editor mode. So I finished a feature film, and it has been kind of awful as an experience. I loved writing it. It was really fun. It was for school, and I feel really accomplished. But because nobody's willing to read it, I feel like it's not good enough. So then I'll like go back and edit like lines of dialogue individually, and I'll edit the story because I'm trying to make it as good as possible. And I've just been stuck in that mentality for a really long time. And I think it's like very editorial of me to sit down and worry about my music and worried about if I'm going to write the wrong thing. Like, it doesn't matter when you're making things to worry about that, because you can worry about that in the editing stage. That's what editing's for. As long as you have something on the page or something in your music software or a melody or just anything to start with, you're not going to ruin it, because if you have taste and experience and not a mastery over your craft, but a familiarity with it, you won't allow yourself to put out something bad. If it's disingenuous, you'll be the first one to know as the creator yourself. I think it's necessary to compartmentalize those two perspectives of being an editor and being a writer. And when you're existing in editor mode, you won't be able to write. And when you're existing in writing mode, you won't be able to edit. So thinking about that in such a black and white binary way, I think is really constructive. And I'm learning so many things about perspective shifting that is really informing my experience lately. To go back to the customer service experience, I have such unbelievably supportive, wonderful coworkers that are allowing me to be vulnerable with them. And this was one of those moments where I'm so grateful to have them in my life, because one of the pieces of advice I was given was, correctly, I was diagnosed as a people pleaser, and it was for the first time that I was told that that is a selfish thing to do. And that just like totally shifted my perspective. And so I think it is as simple as changing the way that you view things or think about things that will allow you to create pieces of work that you genuinely connect with, because you're connecting with your feelings and emotions in the moment and you're expressing that. That's what creative ideas are for expressing ourselves. And if you're not able to express what you're feeling, why do it at all? I think that's the question that I've asked myself a lot, and almost too much, because again, I just am overthinking everything that I'm doing. And I know that the work eventually will happen and eventually get there to where I'm super stoked with it, excited to share it with people. But for now, it's been just a constant struggle and it's been difficult. But I think realizing these perspective shifts of how to be able to be humiliated and how to genuinely connect with your emotions and what you're going through, that is how you can get in touch with that level of expression and creativity. To bring it back to music and how I'm struggling to write, I have two songs that I'm very satisfied with the piano. I think if I write good lyrics and good melodies, they could become my favorite songs. But until then, I have a base layer of emotion that was captured in the raw piano that I really connected with in the moment. And trying to like retroactively go back and tap into that has been, I think, where I'm hitting the brick wall. Because I've kind of decided what the song was emotionally about, and I'm not allowing myself to experience what the songs are about. And so my preconceived notions of the idea and the feeling is what I'm trying to chase after. And I think the more that I'm wanting that to happen, specifically in that emotional context, the farther away it's becoming. And I think that's a classic allegory for life in general. Like, the harder that you want something, the more desperate you are, the less likely it is to happen. And I think that can take shape in a lot of different ways. But with music, it's like, if I'm wanting to write a good song, I will write the opposite of that. When I freed myself of these ideas of what I wanted the song to be, I'm now allowing myself to experience what I'm feeling while I'm writing it, instead of trying to go back and imagine what I was feeling. And just that subtle perspective shift is allowing me to actually move forward with these songs and to create something genuine. So don't have preconceived notions of what things are supposed to be. Don't have expectations. Allow yourself to be open and to feel vulnerable and to feel all of your emotions. Allow yourself to have humility and to remove yourself from the equation and just focus on the expression, because at the end of the day, you are different from your art. I know that sounds strange, but me is this sitting in front of you now. Me is not the song that you're listening to that came from this. And those are two different entities, like how a writing perspective is different from an editor perspective. Sort of. It's removed, is my point. And so by embodying that idea of separation, I think it'll allow you to more accurately focus in and tune into what you're trying to do. Now, if it was only that easy, I sit here talking about it and I feel more inspired and I feel more informed, even just talking about the process. But I know that as soon as I sit down after this video and try and write something, it'll still be difficult and it'll still be hard. But I think you just need to remind yourself that it'll be okay. And despite it being bad or good, you're making something. And that, at the end of the day, is the most important thing, because you're allowing yourself to be expressive and to do what you love. If you're not having fun, what's the point? And I really think that this applies to life in general as well. Like, if you're not enjoying every moment, not that there's an expectation to enjoy every moment, but if you're not content, what are you doing? Is it worth spending your time being stuck in somewhere where you don't want to be, or doing something you don't want to do? And I'm not saying that, go quit your job because you're not enjoying it. I work a day job, you work a day job. Everybody does things that we don't want to do. To quote Adam Savage, I think he said this really brilliantly, that 90% of all jobs are tedium. All work, 90% tedium. I think this applies to life as well. You'll have those 10% of moments that are really satisfying, but the rest of it, you just got to work through. And there is a way to embrace that tedium in a way that it doesn't make you miserable. And I think this really applies to art. Like, if you're forcing yourself to create, that's not the sort of tedium that's enjoyable. Like, for me, the tedium that all this that you see here is very meticulous. And there's a lot of effort that goes into setting up the camera, setting up the light, setting up the sound, setting up everything that you're experiencing now is a level of tedium that to some would seem really difficult. There's a way that you can be okay with doing that level of tedium and to be in the moment while doing it and not be thinking about how miserable you are or thinking about how it's going to be received, because that, again, is what I think is ego overstepping its boundaries and causing you to face resistance. When you're in the moment and when you're not thinking about other things that are going on and when you're focusing on the moment, then you can enjoy yourself and not necessarily have fun doing it, because who enjoys doing tedium to that level? Some people. But it allows you to be more zen about what you're doing. Part of how you move past resistance is embracing that perspective of enjoying what you're doing and being zen during the process. Because if you're worried about how it's going to be received, and if you're worried about how you're not having fun, or if you're thinking about how this is such a struggle, then you're going to struggle. And you just need to let these thoughts kind of pass by you and don't allow yourself to fixate on them, because that is your ego overstepping boundaries, I think. My word of advice to myself and to everybody else is to enjoy the process. Don't enjoy the product. Don't enjoy the outcome. Be in the moment and be in touch with yourself and your emotions by enjoying some form of presence and allowing yourself to have the space to come up with ideas. I think that's part of it too. I feel better. I hopefully will be able to go and still struggle with making music because it's never easy. It's never easy. But enjoy the struggling and enjoy the satisfaction that I get by overcoming that and coming up with some fun tunes along the way. Isn't that all we can do? So thank you for watching this video. It was rambly, but I think there's some gems in there. Who knows? Editor me will figure that out. Until next time, I will catch you later. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe, stay hydrated. That's all I got. Okay, take care now.